Good morning, and welcome to the Lone Star Weekly Business Hour. Your host, Rick Schissler, is a Silver Fox advisor who personally has over 40 years of experience as a serial entrepreneur. So sit back, pull out your pad and pencil, and get ready to take notes as we join Rick Schissler in his Lone Star Weekly Business Hour.
Welcome. Thank you for joining us for this edition of the Weekly Business Hour. This is Rick Schissler, your Silver Fox advisor and host of the Weekly Business Hour. We have a great show lined up for you today. We'll start with our thought for the week, business difficulties. Then a quick check-in with Dick on the business of Lone Star. John Stacy of Advi-Coach is joining us in the studio, and we'll talk about Advi-Coach coaching and mentoring. We'll finish out today's program with several news items and some tips and ideas I hope you can use to improve your business. So sit back, get ready, pull out your pen and pad, and let's get started with today's show. First, remember, if you have a question or a comment during the show or after the show, please email me. My email here at the station is rick@irlonestar.com. Thought for the week, business difficulties. We all have difficulties in our life. They're always challenges, as some people call them. They come up time and again, and I once had a minister tell me that that's really what life is. It's the difficulties, it's the challenges. It's not the smooth, straight path. And your ability to deal with them is extremely important, not only to your personal success, but to the success of your business. The first question I have for you about business difficulty, when's enough enough? When's too much? Each of us have the ability to handle just so much. I experienced this last week when I watched an individual who kept getting hit in a situation. These were challenges, not necessarily unanticipated, but they just kept coming. And after a while, that individual came to me and says, I just can't put up with this any longer. Now, this was a short span of time, but they had taken quite a few hits. We talked about it. We looked at options. We looked at the challenges as they were. We spread out the responses, and they went back to work and got after it. But we all have a limit, and we need to recognize that. And when we reach our limit, we need to have a safety valve, the ability to deal with those business difficulties, spread them out, frame them in the right context, put them down, and solve them one by one. It's all about your approach and how you approach handling difficulties, in my opinion, that dictate your success. If you have a good approach, you realize you're going to hit bumps in the road, as I call them, and then when they come, you're ready for them. You accept them, they're a reality, and then you deal with them in your own way. But have an approach. My encouragement here is to have an approach already generally figured out how you're going to deal with those difficulties as they come. Some of us need to talk to people. If that's true, then line up a friend or a mentor, perhaps a coach like John or myself, and realize you need those kind of people to help you be successful and get through these bumps in the road. The question is, do you have the right formula? You need to put together, as I said earlier, a formula that will help you be successful. Because success is dictated not just by that straight road that my friend the pastor mentioned, but our ability to smooth it out, to round out those curves and those bumps so that we can get from point A to B in the most efficient, fun way that we can. And that is right. We need to have fun in doing what we're doing. One of the ways you can deal with this, and a lot of people don't consider this, if you have one or more employees, one of the things you have to do as a manager and a leader of your business is you need to be able to hand off items, issues to those employees. You have to learn to trust them. And there may be some of these kind of difficulties, if you break them down into categories, that this employee or employees can handle. Think about it. You don't like dealing with the mail, so hand it off to someone. Not that the mail is difficult to deal with, but there are issues, customer service particularly. I see a lot of entrepreneurs that somehow get a little edgy when they're dealing with customer service. But if you have a good employee that's good at it, why not direct all those customer service calls and needs to them? Yes, let them talk to you about them, let them get approval if necessary for certain responses, but empower those people to help you through your business difficulties. You're in the right place if you're a business owner, manager, or you're considering starting your own business, because the Weekly Business Hour is where Montgomery County comes to talk about the latest in business news, ideas to improve your business, and to hear from some of our own local business leaders on how they have found success right here in Montgomery County. First, let me remind you, if you enjoy the show, then please like us on Facebook at the Weekly Hour Business Hour page. Now let's check in on business right here at Lone Star. Dick, what's on tap for Lone Star this coming week?
Other than trying to stay dry, what we're going to be trying to do here is we're getting the station ready for FM broadcasting. We're going to be simulcasting our internet radio, which you're listening to right now, also simulcast on FM. Two signals, 104.5, 106.1 will be our numbers. And another big announcement going along that launch, which will be happening at the end of May, beginning of June, is we're going to start producing videos. We're at the same time installing hopefully a 5-camera system. And so we're going to be a full production of video and radio here in downtown Conroe in our little shop right next to the Conroe Coffee. So stop by, check it out, and then hopefully you'll be seeing us on Channel 12 on Suddenlink through the city of Conroe and also our YouTube channel. So I just want to let those people know that's what we're up to.
So what you're saying, Dick, is when I tell people see you on the radio next week, they'll actually be able to see us on TV.
Yes, I hope to actually get us up in the summer to stream on the internet, video-wise.
Well,
so you'll be able to tune in and watch.
I appreciate you making an honest man of me. Well, again, if you like the show, don't forget about our Facebook page at the Weekly Business Hour page. In the studio today, we have a very special guest, in my opinion. We have a fellow coach, advisor, mentor, someone I've got to know and call a friend, John Stacy. John, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Rick. I appreciate having the opportunity to be here today.
And John, you're with Advi-Coach. What is Advi-Coach?
Advi-Coach is a 10-year-old company really focused on supporting and helping entrepreneurs, business owners evaluate their business, help them understand where their opportunities are, really help invest in implementing best practices, and really then working to hold them accountable. But talking about that, even though Advi-Coach is just a 10-year-old company, I think we need to talk a little bit about the company that really started before Advi-Coach. So there's Franchise Source Brands International, which started about 30 years ago. And the person that started this really looked at the market at the time and said, we have a need for something. So he started, his name is Terry Powell, and so he started this, and it was really to help people that want to become business owners, help them find a franchise. So through this discovery process, they were able to help place potential owners with franchise operations, which meant that they were really more successful. So he was ahead of the pack as far as implementing that. And so we've learned a lot of things from a coaching perspective over the last 30 years. The natural momentum, the natural progression at that point then was to Advi-Coach once the owner actually owned a business.
Provide them support after the fact, so to speak.
Absolutely.
You know, that's a neat thing. You know, we've had several people on the show over the past few years that chose to go the franchise route when they started a business. And somewhat like you, they had been in a corporate position, had all their background and experience there, but wanted to start their own business. I think that's kind of your story, isn't it?
Yeah, that's absolutely my story. As I started looking at what my opportunities were, there's a lot of independent coaches out there. There's a lot of people that there were a lot of companies, such as Focal Point, Action Coach, Vistage, CEO Focus. So there's a lot of companies that have different ways to go about coaching. But as I looked at it, I really wanted to come into the market and be able to help people, to help business owners be successful. And with that, I could either spend my time developing the systems and putting the marketing tools in place, or I could go to the franchise and find those systems already developed. And that's one reason. And the other reason really comes down to, if you look at the stats out there, over 40% of businesses go out of business within the first 5 years, almost 90% within 10 years. When you look at franchise businesses, the last statistics I saw, about 85% of franchise startups stay in business after 10 years. So the stats are staggering that franchises are really the way to go if you want to be an entrepreneur.
Well, that's interesting because the franchise model is something I advocate to certain groups of people. I think when you come from a corporate background, big business background, it's a wonderful place to start, regardless of what you decide. But in a sense, the franchise model, what really attracted you to it, though?
Well, I started looking at a number of different franchise operations. I initially had thought about doing some things of my own, and it goes back to being able to help people. And if I'm spending time as an independent developing systems and developing my approach, I'm not going to be able to spend the time that I could possibly be in as far as helping small business owners. So that was really the first thing that I took a look at. And again, as I looked at it, It was the tools that they were able to provide, the ability to, there's a number of reports that we're able to utilize. There's a lot of marketing tools. There's IBIS industry reporting. I've got a lot of industry reporting for about 700 different businesses. So I've got access to a lot of things, which really was one of the things that helped me make my decision to go to the franchise way.
So basically the franchise in this case, and they represented in other cases, they equip you with
Absolutely.
the tools, some education, so that you can take that experience you have, plug it into these tools and education specific to small business and run with it. Is that a fair statement?
That is absolutely a fair statement, and I think that you hit the nail on the head, because when it comes down to it, I've got 40 years of business experience across supply chain operations, manufacturing, sales, and finance. So I've got that experience, but then I have the tools to be able to implement with using my experience.
All in all, now that you've been an Advi-Coach for some time, would you recommend the franchise model to people?
Absolutely.
And what do you think is the main advantage of it?
It's the tools in place utilizing your experience. So, and I know a lot of people that have decided to buy into a franchise that they really didn't have experience in, but because of the tools and the systems that they had in place, they were able to get up and running faster and more successful sooner.
So would you consider the single most important thing I look for when I'm considering a franchise would be the processes that they have in place and the tools, and make sure they offer that support?
Yeah, it's the processes, the tools, but it's also, so when we start talking about the discovery process, what am I trying to accomplish as an owner? For example, if you've only got X amount of dollars to invest, you may not want to do something with brick and mortar. So as you go through a discovery process, a lot of it is really understanding what you're trying to accomplish and then match you to a company that really makes sense with your strengths and desires.
Well, John, I appreciate that. I'm an advocate for many people of the franchise model. I think it's a great way to start in business. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take our first break of the day. When we come back, we're going to continue this conversation with John Stacy and talk about some of his experiences in working with small business clients. So please stay with us. We'll be right back with you.
Howdy, howdy, folks. Cable Smith, host of the Lone Star Outdoors Show, inviting you to join me Saturday mornings from 7 to 8 on Lone Star Internet Radio for Texas' premier hunting, fishing, and outdoor talk show. So pour yourself another cup of coffee and pull up that stool a little closer to the old campfire, because if you can catch it or kill it in Texas, we're going to talk about it. That's right. Bucks and ducks, gobblers, monster bass, redfish, trout, and a whole lot more. Plus, you never know what outdoor celebrity is going to drop by, from Phil the Duck Commander Robertson to fishing legend Bill Dance or everybody's favorite Uncle Ted Nugent. Heck, we might even mix in an interview and hear some brand spanking new Texas music from one of your favorite Texas musicians like Robert Earl Keen, Brandon Ryder, or the honky-tonk kid himself, Aaron Watson. Loved or hated but never ignored, it's the Lone Star Outdoors Show with me, Cable Smith, Saturday mornings from 7 to 8 right here on Lone Star Internet Radio on irlonestar.com.
If you are looking to start a career, you can start your professional life in the U.S. Army. I am Staff Sergeant Stephen Jackson. My fellow soldiers and I can talk with you about learning high-tech skills in electronics and computers as a soldier. Interested in the medical field? The Army has skilled medical and dental jobs that set you up for future success. Come visit us at 2109 West Davis Street, directly behind the Whataburger on Highway 105. Or give us a call at 936-756-7002.
Tailorized PR works exclusively to get your business noticed. Public relations is how others perceive you and your company. By tailorizing the marketing strategy exclusively to your business, your story is told. Tailorized PR services include networking, social media, blogs, press releases, public appearances, and event planning. To learn about Tailorized PR, call Margie Taylor at 936-828-6881 or visit the website at tailorizedpr.com. My business is tailored to yours.
The East Texas Dream Center is in need of your help. We are a nonprofit Christian organization that houses women and children who are trying to get their lives back after being homeless, abused, or addicted. We are conveniently located at 301 South 1st Street, Conroe, Texas, 77301, right here in Montgomery County. Our needs are financial, and every needs of gasoline, cleaning supplies, laundry soap, Lysol, and whatever else God puts in your heart. To help our ladies and children, please consider a donation. You may visit our website at www.easttexasdreamcenter.org. Again, so you don't forget, it's www.easttexasdreamcenter.org. Donations are tax deductible. Remember what Jesus said, with God, nothing is impossible.
Good morning. This is Rick Schissler, your Silver Fox advisor and host of the Weekly Business Hour. And this morning we have the pleasure of John Stacy, Advi-Coach, in the studio with us, talking about the coaching business and working with small businesses. And in this segment, John and I are going to talk about the actual experiences of working with small business. Well, John, in your work as a business coach, what do you find is the most pressing problem facing your clients these days?
I think there's really three of them that I keep hearing over and over again. And the first thing is they never put a plan together. So we spent a lot of time talking about strategic planning. And, I asked them a question. In a lot of my seminars, I asked the question, would you build a house without a foundation? And everybody says, no, I wouldn't do that. That would be silly. Well, the fact is a lot of businesses start their business without a strategic plan, which is their foundation. So that was really number one. Number two comes to revenue. And how do you generate revenue? And a lot of them may have had technical skills, but they really have no sales experience or no sales management experience. So not being able to understand how to go to market or understanding their business or how to go to market, that becomes a significant challenge. The result of that sales piece, though, ends up being cash. So a lot of times they will start a business, can't generate their revenues as quickly as they may have hoped they could. So it really comes down to now I have a cash issue also. So those are really the three things that I see the most.
Well, the one that always, and I talk about this on the show from time to time, that as a mentor, advisor, is the planning piece, like you mentioned. That was the first one you brought up. I'm amazed how many people just go out and start a business. And they may have the cash, at least to get a year or two now, but they have no real plan other than an idea for a service or product. Don't you find that amazing that there's been very little thought put in to the ABCs of operating every day?
Yeah, that is absolutely amazing to me. And so when people start a business, I say they have a dream. When they have a vision, that's a dream with a plan. And so that's why when I first start talking to people, I want to make sure that I understand what their plan is. And then we also start putting together not just a 3 to 5 year plan, but we also start looking at what are we going to do this year. So we budget month by month. And that ends up being, quite often the initial focus so that we can get them to where they'd like to be.
Well, one of the biggest values I find in a mentor and coaching when I talk to people who have successfully utilized those services is the accountability piece you mentioned.
Yes, and I think that's obviously critical, and people don't think about it. And I think so I've been in multi-billion-dollar companies, and we had key performance indicators, and we had metrics, and we had plans. So I think that's really kind of a significant difference from a large corporation to what I'm finding with the smaller corporations. But my experience really helps with that because we can sit down, and I generally meet weekly with my clients, and we have action items. There's things that I need to get done over the next week, and there's things that they need to get done over the next week. So we really work on that accountability piece, and as I look at that really helps them get them to where they'd like to be.
Yeah, that's interesting. And in other ways, what other ways do you as a coach advisor help your business owner manager become more successful?
Well, number one, and didn't really talk about this from a strategic planning perspective, but we're a little unique because the first thing that we really talk to our owners when I'm starting them as clients is what's your income, lifestyle, wealth, and equity? What do you want to accomplish personally? Their biggest investments are generally the company that they've got, and a lot of times their goals personally are not the same goals they have as the company. So we talk about ILWE, income, lifestyle, wealth, and equity, and once we understand where they are there, then we can start working on the strategic plan, and from an accountability perspective, then we take that yearly plan down into quarters, and we talk about rocks, Stephen Covey and rocks, and we talk about making sure that from a time management perspective, we're prioritizing the things that are most important to them. A lot of times we can get in a situation where we think we're really busy, but guess what? We're not doing the important things to grow our business. So that really is one of those things that we help from an accountability perspective.
You mentioned the idea that you dig down and take the personal side of the life and the business side. One of the things we do as Silver Fox, in fact, one of the founders of the Silver Fox has developed himself the personal business purpose statement, which is a 3 or 4 step thing you take a client, because many times they're in a business or have that idea or even to a vision point of view, and it really doesn't match what their life or what they envision their life to be like. Their family, exit strategies, they don't mix. They don't work.
Well, and so then as we do some of the strategic planning, we talk about values. What are your values as an individual? What are the values that you expect in your company? What purpose do you have? Why are you doing this business? And it's amazing in a lot of cases, it takes time because that's not something they thought about. But if they want their company, if their company is there for a particular reason, they need to know why. They need to have thought about that. And if they've got particular values, they need to hire and have employees that share those same values, because that's the only way you get the company going in the same direction.
Have you ever? I got to ask this question because to me it's a key to the entire practice. One of the interesting challenges. Have you ever talked someone out of going into business or to sell their business? In other words, withdraw from business.
Actually, there are some people I've talked to that were in the process of looking to start up, and when she started talking about the cash that she had. And you're going, why are you doing this? Let's think about this a little bit. Does this really make sense for you? And so you do get into those conversations, but you have to, because from an honesty and integrity perspective, you can sit there and actually kind of go down this path that they could get started, but in reality, it really doesn't make sense for them.
Right, you're leading them dead end, because that's something I look for, particularly because I work with startups, and you've got a go no go situation. And a lot of folks won't work with their clients. They won't help them face up to that reality that they need to do something else. It's very interesting to me. One of the areas that's a real challenge to small business, in my opinion, is sales. Unless the business, of course, was started by a salesperson, but then they have their own unique challenges with sales. What advice can you offer our listeners to help them improve their sales in general?
Really, first, understand your business, understand your strengths and weaknesses, understand the marketplace, understand who your competitors are, but then put business processes, sales processes in place. And a lot of times what I've seen is they may have a couple salespeople and they say, well, go sell X. And really when it comes down to it, you can't tell someone to go sell X. You really have to start talking about activity. And so we really start developing metrics or KPIs around, if I'm a salesperson and I'm selling X, I need to make this many phone calls, I need to have this many visits, I need to really track what I'm doing as an individual, because if you want to get an output, the inputs have to be correct. And so often that becomes a real challenge in sales. It's more comfortable when you're in manufacturing. It's more comfortable when it comes to finance, when you're looking at, cash management, when you're looking at day sales outstanding, when you're looking at those things, it's a little more natural. On the sales side, it's not as natural. So it really is defining what the expectation is for the employee. So it's define the expectation, communicate the expectation, sit down and make sure that they understand what the expectation is, and then, as they achieve those expectations, reward folks for winning.
Right. Well, there's no doubt about that. And that could apply to me as the owner as well. I need to put expectations on myself, because so many times in a small business, the owner is reluctant to get out there and really push the sales part of it, and they need to be accountable.
Or the flip side of it, the owner isn't totally involved with the sales process, and everything else is burning down, but he's focused on the sales piece. And as I look at that, what I see is a lot of times they're so focused on what they're good at that in some cases, or a lot of cases, they're not looking at the financials, for example. I've seen owners that they look at the bank account, checking account says I've got money at the end of the month, life is good. When in fact, when you look at their results and where they're going, life isn't good. But they don't look at their financials on a regular basis. And, so that's one of the other ways that I help people, is really develop the plan and really evaluate monthly how they're performing and what changes may need to be made.
Right. Well, that's obviously very critical. You have a great deal of experience in building a business, mostly in the larger business realm. What big company business building skills can a small business adopt to build their business?
Well, and I think I'd mentioned that earlier, really, when it comes down to it, developing expectations, having a plan, communicating the expectation, making sure everybody understands what the values that you have, and then allowing your team to go out and do the job fulfilling those expectations. And, I learned a long time ago that you inspect what you expect. So that hasn't changed for years. So it really comes down to inspect, set the expectation, what you expect.
And that applies to big companies as well as small companies.
Absolutely.
And sometimes small companies, I find small business owners don't get that they can really learn some things from the big companies. good and bad.
Well, and vice versa. There's a lot of things that big companies could learn from small companies because they lose, I talk about values. Sometimes large companies kind of lose sight of what values they started with. And over time, the company that they started is no longer who they are, so they've lost their identity. So it really goes both ways.
Well, you're right about that because my attitude is I look for smart people, I look for successful businesses, and I learn from all of them. So that's one of the things. Well, let me ask you as a final question today, as we're running out of time, is what do you foresee as the biggest challenge in the next, say, 3 to 5 years for small businesses in general?
Well, there's a lot of unknowns, I think, from a government perspective, and I think that we're seeing more and more regulations. And if you look at small businesses, they're about 75% of the GDP. They're about 75% of all the employees out there, and yet the government feels that we need to regulate them some more. And I think that that's probably the biggest unknown at this particular time.
Well, and a lot of folks don't get the burden. I mean, you see these, if you catch it every once in a while, they'll publish, well, this regulation's coming, and it should only take you 8 hours to fill out these forms. And then all of a sudden you look around and how many hours in a year am I spending as a small business owner being responsible for it? And the very indirect things, like going to the bank. Was involved with a client the other day, opening a bank account. I could not believe how the bank has become so regulated that everybody had to come in and sign the cards right then, and they had 24 hours. Of course, that was an internal thing, but you have to allow for that if you're going to start a small business.
Absolutely.
Very interesting. John, I deeply appreciate you taking your time. We've got what I call a bad weather day. You made it through the rain. And hopefully folks are listening today if they're stuck at home and still have their cable and internet service. But if someone wants to get in touch with you to learn more about what you do or learn about Advi-Coach, which is the best way for them to do it?
Well, number one, call me. I answer my phone on as soon as someone calls, 936-203-5426. Or they can email me at jstacy@Advi-Coach, and that's ADVICOACH.com. And Rick, I want to thank you personally. I mean, I appreciate the time that we spent today. It's been very, very good.
Well, thank you again very much. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take our bottom of the hour break. When we come back, we're going to talk about what's happening with our oil. Looks like we might have some trouble on the horizon, so please stay with us. We'll be right back with you.
Are you interested in learning more about preparing quick, healthy, and safe meals for your family? Would you like to spend time with others learning tips and tricks, along with practicing and tasting nutritious food? If so, the On the Road to Healthy Living Mobile Cooking School is for you. Call Amy Ressler at Texas A&M AgriLife Extension Service at 936-539-7825 to find a class near you or volunteer to host a class.
Are you planning on growing, expanding, or possibly selling your business? All of these business opportunities require developing strategies and setting goals in order to achieve success. Providing specialized consulting in these and other key business decisions is what Silver Fox Advisors have been doing since 1986. Let us help you today. Call us at 713-343-3718. It might be the most profitable call that you ever make.
Howdy, howdy, folks. Cable Smith, host of the Lone Star Outdoors Show, inviting you to join me Saturday mornings from 7 to 8 on Lone Star Internet Radio for Texas' premier hunting, fishing, and outdoor talk show. So pour yourself another cup of coffee and pull up that stool a little closer to the old campfire, because if you can catch it or kill it in Texas, we're going to talk about it. That's right. Bucks and ducks, gobblers, monster bass, redfish, trout, and a whole lot more. Plus, you never know what outdoor celebrity is going to drop by, from Phil the Duck Commander Robertson to fishing legend Bill Dance or everybody's favorite uncle Ted Nugent. Heck, we might even mix in an interview and hear some brand spanking new Texas music from one of your favorite Texas musicians like Robert Earl Keen, Brandon Ryder, or the honky-tonk kid himself, Aaron Watson. Loved or hated but never ignored, it's the Lone Star Outdoors Show with me, Cable Smith, Saturday mornings from 7 to 8 right here on Lone Star Internet Radio on irlonestar.com.
Running a business is hard. The pressure to maximize profits and minimize loss continue to grow. Schooley Mitchell of Houston can help. Their independent consultants will ensure you are receiving the best communications and credit card processing services at the best prices. Most importantly, their services are completely risk-free. If they don't find savings for you, there is no fee. Contact Schooley Mitchell of Houston today to find out. Call 832-314-1815 or visit their website at schooleymitchell.com/JM Polio.
Doing business since 1985, Assistance League of Montgomery County is a nonprofit, all-volunteer organization where all proceeds stay in Montgomery County. We are proud to sponsor 10 philanthropic programs that enhance the lives of those in our community. Visit our thrift shop at 126 North San Jacinto Street in downtown Conroe or call us at 936-760-1151. Don't forget to like us on Facebook.
This is the Weekly Business Hour, and I'm Rick Schissler, your Silver Fox advisor and host of the show. We're to the part of the show where I try to offer you some local or national, international news and some business tips I hope you can use in your business. Well, while we took the weekend, and a lot of us took it easy, there was something happening in the business world, I feel, internationally, that has a great potential to impact our business right here in Montgomery County. And that's that they had a big meeting of all the big oil producers in the world and decided not to decide. And what does that mean to us? The fact is they failed to reach any kind of agreement to limit the flow of oil that's being pumped throughout the world. And that means that the price of oil is going to continue to remain soft. Most recently, it made it up to $41 a barrel. There were some expectations that it might fall from that. Good article in the Wall Street Journal reported by Georgie Kenchev. It was updated on April 17th, about 10 o'clock at night. It says oil prices opened sharply lower in early Asian trading on Monday. It was Monday in Asia while it was Sunday here, after major oil producers ended their meeting in Doha, Qatar over the weekend without reaching an agreement to cap production. Hopes for a deal among major producers, including the Organization of Petroleum Export Countries, OPEC, and Russia, were a main driver in a rally that lifted U.S. crude prices more than 50% from their February lows. As I said, the price of a barrel of crude closed on Friday at $41.50. Now much of those gains could be eroded in a market that has already endured a turbulent year. Price of oil was recently trading down at 5.7%, already down to $38 and a nickel a barrel. And Brent crude was down to $40.86 a barrel. It's a bearish report, and we all know the impact of the price of oil on the state of Texas and on Montgomery County. Even though our economy has held up very strongly and we've been able to weather the storm better than our neighbor to the south in Harris County, the longer the price of oil stays down in this $30 to $40 range, I'm convinced, as many, many people are, that it's going to begin to trickle down the effects, the negative effects, and potentially affect the business right here in Montgomery County. So I would stay tuned to that if I was you. And when you run your business, even though you may be a small business with one or more employees or just yourself, what people are doing is they're holding back. They're not spending money. They're not moving. They're not buying. The consumer market as well as the business market. So be aware of this. Be prepared in case something happens so you don't get caught and one of those businesses is left short. But let's keep an eye on the price of oil. Don't overreact. Don't react today. Just keep an eye on it and see where the trends are heading. Now to some business tips I hope you can use. And I picked up a recent copy of Inc. magazine. This is the April edition. I recommend from time to time on the show that everyone that's in small business take a look at Inc. It has a lot of useful articles in it. You can read about how people made a success, took an idea for a product or service, how there were failures as well. They cover the waterfront, and I find a lot of useful tips in every month's edition. First story I want to talk about that was published in April is how I learned to let my company grow up. This was an interview with Bob Parsons. If you don't know who Bob Parsons is, he was the individual that started a little company called GoDaddy. Most of us who have internet domains, who have a website, have heard of GoDaddy. The company is over $1 billion in sales on an annual basis, selling a very commodity-like product, domain names. Easy to get into that field, lots of competition, But Bob was able to do some things to make that company come alive and sort of break through. He has since sold off a majority of it and cashed out, so to speak. But he interviewed for this article about how I learned to let my company grow up. Many times as business owners, we hold our company back. We don't even realize it. We put constraints on it. Most obvious one is cash. The company flows cash flow. It's positive. We make money. And then we take that money and divert too much of it to other needs or wants, a lot of times personal. We don't put money back in the business. Other ways we hurt our company, we don't hire the right people. We don't pay another 50 cents or $1 an hour to get better people working for us. But in this case, Bob had a company that he obviously had an exit strategy. He wanted to sell the company at some point, so he continued to work on it and let it grow so it got to the point where it could be sold, in his case, for lots of money. It could attract the kind of buyers who had lots of money to invest, to spend, and he let it grow up. And the point he made in this article, I want to give you this quote because I think it's very important. He says, "I never looked at it as giving part of my baby away, because I'm a businessman, and that was an investment." I think that's important. You've got to decide whether your business is a lifestyle for you and you're going to keep it, you're going to baby it, you're going to nurture it, and you just never want to let it go, which is perfectly fine. But if you're trying to build a business and your exit strategy is part of your strategic plan to sell that business, then you need to treat it like a business and make those decisions along the way that help it grow, and then be ready to part from it. Second article I came across I thought was very interesting for us that have retail or have locations. And we look for other locations, either to move or to expand our business and become a multi-location operator. It's entitled Location, and I added the word "and more." It was written by Norm Brodsky. He's a regular contributor, small business owner. I've been reading Norm's columns for a number of years. He kind of gives good basic, what I call sage advice. And he's invested in a restaurant concept that's a fast, casual Japanese restaurant. And I won't belabor that point, but he's got a restaurant business that he's invested in, working with a group of management people and expanding the restaurant to multiple locations. And an opportunity came up for them to open a location in Madison Square Garden. And I assume that most of you, at least those who follow sports, are familiar with Madison Square Garden. You can just imagine what a drawing card that would be to have a restaurant or a store in that location. But the downside, and you may have already guessed it, it's very expensive, not only in rent, but build out, the fees, very expensive to operate a business in Madison Square Garden. And so some people believe the smart play is don't go there. Use the money you would have invested there and open, say, 2 more restaurants and other locations. In this case, though, Norm works through the thinking of it, and basically the company had grown to a point with multiple locations that it needed to improve its brand. So for a reason really somewhat unrelated to the actual location and whether it could be grow to a point that it would be a positive cash flower, contribute to the overall profit of the company, he decided, his group of investors and his owners decided, managers, that they needed to improve the brand. And one of the best ways they could do it is locate in Madison Square Garden, where literally thousands of people who attend events there come past the business and hopefully would stop in and try the food and then go back to their homes in the various boroughs of New York and beyond, literally around the world. And they would carry a good idea of what they do at this restaurant and potentially spread the word, if you will. So sometimes you make a decision on a location that's not totally driven about the potential profitability of a given location. There are other issues that come into play. But most of the time, so we don't get carried away, we're looking for locations to expand our business that will be profitable, if you will, as a standalone unit. We have to keep it in mind, but there are exceptions, and I think that's important to remember as well. The last article I'd like to talk about, an item I hope you can gain some information potentially to use in your business, is entitled How to Keep Them Coming Back. This was an article that was inked as well, and it covered 4 basic things. And some of them we've talked about before, but it's the little things we do in our business, regardless of whether we're online or we have a retail storefront or we have a fleet of trucks that provide services. The idea is we have to do things every day, and everything we do to keep people coming back. One of the stories they relate to, which I personally relate to, was an online business, and the owner of that business started sending handwritten thank you notes. Actually put aside a pool of customers who spent quite a bit of money with the company online and started sending them personalized thank you notes. And it was amazing. In fact, stunning. The return business they get from that group of people versus the email thank you notes, it just killed the email and made it absolutely worth their while to do that. And the idea of any business really is repeat business, because that's the cheapest way to get a customer, is to keep selling the same customer over and over. Most, if not all of us, know that. So one of the things you got to do is constantly communicate with your customer to show them what they're missing if they're not doing business with you on a regular basis. Many, many ways to do that. A lot of people use email. They use special offers, not just discounts, but special offers. And it's interesting. One company used a news reading app. Flipboard is a news reading app that's out there, and they use regular email of stories and put them on their platform. And they launched a strictly political articles email in the past year. This has helped them double the number of users of their service from $42 to $85 million. So you've got to always think of ways to create value in the minds of the customer and show them what they're missing. You can make it into a game. I mean, right now McDonald's has their Monopoly game. That's been around forever. But there's certain people that really get off to pulling those little pieces off their drink or their food and seeing if they collect or win an instant prize. And there's a lot of ways you can turn it into a game to keep people anxious to come and use your service so they attain, if you will, a chip in the game. A third way, and a way I think is very important, it's kind of getting old-fashioned because it's been around now for 10, 20 years, and that's build a community. Try to use your business, use social media, use email to build a community of users, people that will recommend you online, the people that will talk and respond to questions that you send out and ask people's opinions. And, of course, the last one, be thoughtful. Everything you do, be thoughtful. Send people small gifts when they do business, obviously branded gifts typically, so that they remember who you are and they understand and believe that you're thinking about them. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's the conclusion of our business tips and ideas that I hope you can use. We're going to take a final break today, and then when we come back, I'm going to have my Silver Fox Advisor Tip of the Week, and we're going to talk about how to leave work at 5 p.m. and still get everything done. Be right back with you.
Have a legal question? Are you a resident of Montgomery County? Call 281-645-6344 to talk to a volunteer attorney from the Woodlands Bar Association. We answer the phones on the first Monday of every month at 281-645-6344 from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. to provide general legal information and information about legal resources to Montgomery County residents.
Are you paying too much for your personal or business insurance? Patricia Cooper Insurance on FM 1488 and Tamina Road is an independent agency that can shop multiple carriers to find the best rates and coverages to fit your specific needs. Call us today at 281-356-9955 and let us go to work for you. Patricia Cooper Insurance, where our customers are treated like family.
Did you know there are more than 790 abused and neglected children currently in foster care in Montgomery County? Will you help make a difference? I'm Allie Stevens with Casa Child Advocates of Montgomery County. We train and support volunteers to be the voice of children in the foster care system. Kids removed from their home because of abuse and neglect, and we need volunteers just like you to advocate for these children. To learn more about becoming an advocate, please visit CasaSpeaksForKids.com. That's CasaSpeaksForKids.com.
Tune in to Chamber Chat with your hosts, Courtney Galley and Samantha Good, with the Conroe, Lake Conroe Chamber of Commerce, every first Tuesday of the month at 11 a.m. I'm one of your hosts, Courtney Galley. Samantha and I will chat about the Conroe Chamber's upcoming events and programs for the month. Relax with a cup of joe or your favorite drink for Chamber Chat.
This is Rick Schissler, your Silver Fox Advisor and host of the Weekly Business Hour. Welcome you back to our final segment for today. And talk a little bit about how to leave work at 5 p.m. and still get everything done. Do I have your attention yet? Not quite as good as the 4-Hour Work Week, if you remember that book, but I think it points out a lot of things that we could do in our daily business activity that makes us more effective as well as more efficient. First thing is we need to realize that and accept, particularly if you're older like me, that the world is changing. I mean, it is changing rapidly every day around us. There's no such thing as business as usual. We have to acknowledge, all of us, that we have more work to do than time to do it. We're going to have to do things differently if we're ever going to catch up. I came across an article about this topic. It was published in Forbes magazine, written by Catherine Dill, who's on the staff there at Forbes. And I think she provided some interesting insights, and I'm going to use some of her thoughts in giving you my Silver Fox tip of the week. The first thing is, once we accept the fact that things are moving fast, they're moving rapid, even though we might not personally like it, it's reality if we want to compete in the business world. So the first thing we need to do is, obviously, we've got to figure out what we're actually doing with all the time we have, all the time we commit to work. Some of us go in at 7 and we don't go home till 7 or 8 or 9 or 10, or we go home and we keep working on our laptop. We don't stop working 6-7 days a week. So start to evaluate what you're doing. There's a number of ways to do it. One of the most obvious, I think, and easiest is just keep a journal. Grab a tablet, if you will, a piece of paper, or you can enter it in your computer if you want. But we're going to talk about that in just a minute, about how the computer is a real threat to our time. But make a time diary, if you will, or journal. What you're doing, break it down into 15, 30-hour increments and where you're spending your time. That doesn't mean record every conversation, every call. Just see where you're spending your time and whether you're actually working on the content or work that you need to do to advance yourself, advance your business. I think you're going to be amazed. I've done this exercise several times in my life. Every time I was amazed. I knew I was busy. I knew I was doing things, but what I was spending my time on really surprised me. You need to make a short list. You know, a lot of folks I know, including me, do a task list, and we'll list out 10, 15, 20 things on that list. What we need to do is go the short list route. List out 3 to 5 critical things. And one of the recommendations that Ms. Dill makes is do it for 3 days. In other words, sit down, not the morning of that you go into work, but the day before, perhaps the end of work, and move forward 3 days, tomorrow, the next day, and the next day, and list 3 to 5 important things, important issues that you need to tackle, that you need to take care of. And then look at those throughout the day and make sure you've set aside time to tackle those issues. I've even gone as far as to put an estimated time to work on an issue, because the downside is you can start doing some research or something like that, and you end up spending hours where you really only needed to spend an hour. So I will actually put down 60 minutes for research, or 2 hours. Actually make assignments to people who work with me and say, take an hour and go look at this. And whatever you find within an hour, let's talk about it. So I think that's very important. One of the mistakes I think people make, and Ms. Dill agrees with this, is they look for some kind of fancy tool to track all this and to keep track of it once they know what they need to be doing, a new app or something like that. And this is where the computer thing comes in. You know, once we turn our computer on and look at the screen, there's all kinds of things that are trying to pull us away from our main task, all kinds of areas that we can use to procrastinate. And we've got to be careful. So the list, the recommendation on my part and Ms. Dill is print it out if you want to type it on your computer, or better yet, like I do, write it out on a tablet and then scratch it out as you move through it. And one warning here, email. A lot written about that lately. Be careful with your email. It is the world's greatest tool for procrastination. I work with clients right now that set aside 2 or 3 times during the day, 10, 2, and 4, if you will, the old Dr. Pepper slogan, and they only check their email during those times. It's important, because once we get into email, I guarantee a lot of people could spend a good part, if not all day, on email. I've already talked about planning your workday in advance. It's not as hard as it seems. In 3 days, I think is an excellent balance because it makes you think about, okay, I don't need to put 10 things on my list. I'll put 3 or 4 today, 3 or 4 the next day, and 3 or 4 the next day. So I took my long list, I pushed it down to what's doable that I can truly accomplish in that time frame. You need to ask yourself the question, if the power went off in the building at 5 o'clock, to use the example in the title, what would I do? What would I be leaving behind? In other words, if I had a 10 or 12-hour workday, what was it that I couldn't accomplish within 8 hours? What would be left for the next day? It's an interesting scenario to think about. The best things in life for you and your life at the office is to build a dynamic life outside of it. And that's the fourth thing I want to take just a second. I advocate that on the show, and I think it's just critical. You've got to look for opportunities outside the office. It's not just sitting in a chair and watching the sunset. That's neat to do on occasion, but look for opportunities to take your qualities, your characteristics, what you're good at, and help others. Be involved in your community, your church, family. Look for opportunities, set aside that time, and get involved with them, because then you begin to develop 2 challenges every day. I've got things I want to do at work, and I've got things I want to do with my family, my community, or church. And it creates a neat balance. It's a neat challenge. I encourage everyone, because if you build your schedule right and only schedule that 8-9 hours a day so you can leave at 5 or 6, whatever time you choose, and not be stuck working all night, every night, all day Saturday, and even on Sundays, this is how you build a more effective business and how you as an individual are more effective in all the roles you assume, both in your family, community, church, and your business. As we close today's show, I want to give a big Lone Star thanks to our sponsors, Patricia Cooper Insurance Company, Schooley Mitchell, Taylorize PR, and the Silver Fox Advisors. Please put a note on your calendar to join us again next week right here on IR Lone Star on Monday morning at 11 o'clock. Until then, stay engaged this week, keep your focus on what counts in your business, and we'll visit with you again next week.